My parents declared, "The ultimate gift for your sister's wedding is if you disappear from our family, forever." I didn't beg, packed my things, took the keys, walked out, the door closing like a final punctuation mark. The next day, sold the apartment, froze the joint account. I'm Mabel Rose Carter, 28 years old, and I spent my entire life chasing shadows in my own family. Always the afterthought next to my sister, their golden child. Every effort I made to belong felt like screaming into an empty canyon. But I kept trying, hoping for that one moment of acceptance. The day before her wedding in Cedar Falls, Iowa, I accidentally misplaced a box of decorations I'd poured my heart into preparing, weeks of late nights just to make her day perfect. It was a tiny mistake, but my parents, who'd always favored her and barely tolerated me, erupted. In our living room, their faces twisted with rage. They cornered me like predators. "You've destroyed everything again, Mabel," my mom Janet snarled, her voice dripping with years of pent-up resentment. My dad William nodded, his eyes ice-cold, adding, "The ultimate gift for your sister's wedding would be if you just disappeared from our family, forever." Those words slammed into me like a freight train. My heart racing, chest tightening with a mix of fury and betrayal that I'd suppressed for too long. How could the people who raised me wish me gone, just to avoid embarrassing their favorite? I didn't beg or fight. I grabbed my keys, walked out the door, slamming it behind me like a final punctuation mark. The next day, I couldn't face it. Instead, I watched the wedding through a friend's shaky livestream, my sister Claire beaming in her gown, my parents toasting happily as if erasing me had lifted a weight. But in that moment, something ignited inside me. Not defeat, but a fierce determination. What if disappearing was my escape? What secrets would unravel without me there to hold it all together? So, I made it real. I packed my bags, sold my apartment, froze our shared accounts, and vanished from Cedar Falls without a trace. If you're wondering how my family reacted, or what dark truth surfaced when I was gone, stick around. This is my raw story of breaking free from a toxic bond that nearly destroyed me. Growing up in Cedar Falls, Iowa, our family home looked like something out of a magazine, a neat two-story colonial with a white picket fence where neighbors waved and assumed everything inside was just as perfect. But behind closed doors, the truth was far from ideal. My parents, Janet Louise Carter and William James Carter, owned a local insurance agency respected in town for their reliability and community involvement. Janet handled client relations with her sharp wit and organized events like charity auctions. Her outfits always pressed, makeup flawless. William managed the finances, steady and supportive, backing her decisions without question, including how they raised us. From my earliest memories, my sister was the star they orbited around. 4 years older, Claire excelled effortlessly, bringing home perfect grades and cheerleading trophies that Janet displayed proudly in the living room. "Your sister's a natural leader," Janet would say over dinner, eyes lighting up as she recounted Claire's latest achievement. William would agree, adding, "She's got that drive we always hoped for." I tried to shine too, practicing violin for hours or joining the debate team, but it never landed the same. When I won a school poetry contest at age 8, Janet glanced at the certificate and muttered, "Nice hobby, but your sister just made varsity cheerleading. That's real accomplishment." The constant comparisons chipped away at me, making every effort feel pointless. Childhood highlighted the divide even more. In the backyard, if we fought over a swing or game, Janet always ruled in Claire's favor, telling me to stop being selfish. William rarely stepped in, just patting my shoulder later with, "Let it go, kiddo. Family harmony matters." By middle school, I learned to fade back, avoiding spotlights to dodge criticism. But the jabs intensified. Janet monitored my appearance relentlessly, commenting at breakfast, "Mabel, that shirt makes you look frumpy. Change before school." I was average build, but her words made me doubt every mirror glance. William joined in on career talks, like when I expressed interest in graphic design, "Why not insurance like us? Your sister's already interning at Northwestern Mutual." High school amplified everything. Claire sailed through with honors, her college acceptance to Northwestern University celebrated with a family party. Janet and William drove her to campus, posting photos online with captions like, "Proud parents of a future executive." I stayed behind, enrolling in Cedar Falls Community College to cut costs and help at the agency after classes. But help meant running errands for Janet, filing papers for William, or covering reception when they needed breaks. I dated sporadically, but guys lost interest when my schedule revolved around family calls. One relationship ended after Janet grilled him at dinner. He's nice, but not driven like Claire's boyfriend. Post-graduation, I landed a marketing job at a small agency nearby. The commute was short enough to drop by home daily. Pay was decent, and I rented a duplex 3 blocks away, craving some space while staying available. But availability turned into obligation. Janet's migraines started around then. Doctors said stress-related, but she demanded I drive her to appointments, claiming, "I can't manage alone." William reinforced it, calling during my lunch, "Your mom's relying on you, Mabel. Family first." Claire, now thriving in Chicago as a corporate consultant, visited twice a year at most, staying in hotels and transforming visits into praise sessions. Janet would beam, asking about her promotions or vacations, while I served meals and cleared plates, invisible again. I sacrificed bigger dreams, like relocating for a high-profile agency job, convincing myself loyalty would pay off. But resentment built. Last winter, when Janet's arthritis worsened, I turned my guest room into her recovery space, working from my kitchen table amid her constant requests. William stopped by daily, thanking me vaguely, but it felt like duty, not appreciation. Claire sent a care package, but her calls focused on her own life, rarely asking about mine. Despite the imbalance, I held on, planning Claire's wedding with everything I had, vendors, timelines, decorations, hoping it would bridge the gap. That misplaced box wasn't the real issue. It was the excuse they'd waited for. Their explosion unleashed years of favoritism, confirming I was the outsider. Watching the live stream, seeing them toast joyfully without me, the hurt morphed into clarity. How much longer would I endure this? Vanishing wasn't revenge, it was reclaiming what they'd never given, my own worth. But let me tell you about the months leading up to that breaking point, because that's where the real betrayal happened. Claire's wedding was supposed to be the moment everything changed. Claire Marie Carter was getting married to Brandon Scott Mitchell, a finance guy she'd met in Chicago. And I threw myself into making it perfect, believing foolishly that it might finally earn me a real place in my family. For months, I poured every spare minute and dollar into planning, hoping Janet and William would see me as more than the daughter who always fell short. I told myself this could be my chance to belong, to hear them say just once, "Good job, Mabel." But deep down, a nagging voice warned me it was a long shot. I started early, coordinating every detail like it was my own lifeline. I called vendors late at night, negotiating with the caterer to secure Claire's favorite dishes, grilled salmon and wild rice, no onions because Janet had a sensitivity. I spent hours choosing flowers, settling on white roses because Claire once mentioned loving them in a bridal magazine. The guest list was a nightmare. Janet insisted on inviting half of Cedar Falls' business community. So I tracked down addresses for over 120 people, double-checking RSVPs to avoid any embarrassment. I even designed custom place cards myself, staying up past midnight to get the font just right. Every choice was deliberate. Every step a silent plea for approval. But Janet and William barely noticed. When I showed Janet the catering menu, she scanned it for 2 seconds before saying, "Claire would have picked something more elegant." William, flipping through his insurance files, added, "Don't mess this up, Mabel. Your sister deserves perfection." Their words cut, but I swallowed the hurt, telling myself it was just their way. I kept going, booking the venue, a charming barn just outside town, and confirming the photographer, Rebecca and Sullivan, a friend of Janet's from the country club who gushed about how radiant Claire would look. Rebecca barely acknowledged me, focusing her chatter on my sister's beauty and poise. Claire was barely involved, too busy with her consulting job in Chicago. She'd text me vague approvals, "Looks fine" or "whatever you think," leaving me to handle the chaos alone. When she did visit, Janet and William transformed, showering her with questions about her dress fittings or Brandon's latest promotion. I'd sit at the dinner table, passing dishes while they laughed about memories I wasn't part of. Once I tried sharing an idea about the seating chart, but Janet cut me off. "Mabel, focus on getting it done, not talking about it." William nodded, his eyes on Claire, who didn't even glance my way. The closer the wedding got, the more their criticism sharpened. Janet called me one morning, her voice icy, "Mabel, your emails to the florist sounded unprofessional." I had to rewrite them. I'd spent hours crafting those messages, but I just apologized, my stomach twisting. William wasn't much better. When I showed him the finalized timeline, he sighed, "Your sister would have had this sorted weeks ago." I wanted to scream that I'd been juggling their demands alongside my own job. But I bit my tongue, clinging to the hope that the wedding day would change their perspective. Little did I know, I was walking straight into their trap. I spent $1,800 of my savings, money I'd set aside for a marketing conference, on a vintage necklace for Claire. A delicate gold piece with pearl drops I knew she'd love. I imagined her face lighting up, maybe even thanking me in front of everyone. I also bought a new dress for myself, a simple navy one that Janet wouldn't call tacky. I practiced my smile in the mirror, determined to look the part of the supportive sister, even if I felt like an outsider. The night before the final vendor meeting, I was exhausted, running on coffee and fading hope. I presented Janet and William with the full wedding binder, every contract, receipt, and timeline organized to perfection. Janet flipped through it, her lips pursed. "This is adequate, but it's not up to your sister's standards," she said, handing it back. William didn't even look, just muttered, "Let's hope you don't drop the ball." Their dismissal hit harder than usual, a reminder that no matter how much I gave, it wouldn't be enough. I went to bed that night replaying their words, my chest heavy with a mix of anger and desperation. Why was I still trying to prove myself to people who'd already written me off? The day before Claire's wedding was chaos, but I thought I had everything under control. I'd been up since dawn finalizing details, double-checking the caterer's delivery and the DJ's playlist. My duplex was a mess of checklists and vendor contracts, but I was determined to make it flawless for her, for them. I drove to their house that afternoon to drop off the last batch of decorations, my stomach knotted with hope that they'd finally see my effort. Instead, I walked into a storm that changed everything. I'd been carrying a box of table centerpieces, delicate glass lanterns I'd spent weeks sourcing, when I realized one was missing. I'd left it at my place, an honest mistake after sleepless nights. Before I could explain, Janet noticed, her eyes narrowing. "Mabel, where's the rest of the decorations?" she snapped, her voice cutting through the living room. William, sitting on the couch with his evening beer, looked up, his face already hardening. I started to apologize. "I forgot one box. I'll grab it now." But Janet cut me off, her hands slamming onto the kitchen counter. "You forgot? You're always screwing things up. This is Claire's wedding, not some school project you can half-ass." Her words hit like a slap, echoing years of criticism I'd tried to ignore. William stood, his voice low but venomous. "We've been patient, Mabel, but this is too much. You're embarrassing us again." I tried to defend myself, explaining I'd been juggling everything alone, but Janet wasn't having it. "You're careless. Always have been," she hissed. "Your sister would have had this done perfectly months ago." Claire was there, standing near the stairs with Brandon, both dressed casually as they prepped for the rehearsal dinner. I looked at her, pleading for a word of support, but she just stared at the floor, silent as ever. Brandon shifted uncomfortably, saying nothing, his eyes fixed on his phone. The air grew heavier as Janet's voice rose to that final devastating blow. "You know what, Mabel? We've put up with your mistakes long enough. The ultimate gift you could give for your sister's wedding would be if you just disappeared from our family, permanently." William nodded, his jaw tight. "It's time, Mabel. You don't belong here." The words tore through me, each one a confirmation of what I'd always feared. I was never wanted. Rebecca, Janet's friend from the country club, was there arranging flowers for the rehearsal. She froze, her eyes darting between us, but offered no defense, just a pitying glance that stung worse than their anger. My chest burned with a mix of hurt and rage, my hands shaking as I clutched the box. I wanted to scream, to throw every insult they'd hurled at me back in their faces. But something deeper took over, a cold, sharp clarity. They'd meant every word. This wasn't about a missing box. It was about years of seeing me as the problem, the one who didn't fit. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "You'll get your gift." I set the box down, turned, and walked out the door, slamming it behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my laptop, the weight of their words sinking in. Why had I spent years trying to please people who wished me gone? The next day, I couldn't face the wedding. A friend from work live-streamed it, and I watched on my phone, Claire glowing in her dress, Janet and William toasting with smiles as if my absence was the missing piece to their perfect day. The sight fueled my resolve. If they wanted me gone, I'd make it real. I started planning that night, my mind racing but clear. I called my boss, taking a personal day, something I never did. Then I contacted a real estate agent, someone known for quick cash sales. My duplex, my sanctuary for the past 3 years, was worth more than what they offered, but speed mattered more than profit. I reached out to a lawyer I'd met at a networking event, Catherine Walsh, to understand my options. Sitting in her office the next morning, I laid it all out, the years of being sidelined, the public rejection, the missing box that became their excuse. My voice stayed calm, but inside I was unraveling. I want to disappear, I told her. Not just leave, but start over completely. What do I need to know? Catherine leaned back, her expression serious. Mabel, this is a big step. You sure you don't want to take some time? I shook my head. I've given them my whole life. I'm done waiting for them to change. She nodded, outlining the legal side. You're an adult. You can relocate without telling anyone. But those shared accounts with your parents are tricky. They're joint, so you could face issues if you withdraw everything. I explained the accounts were set up for family expenses, mostly my contributions for Janet's medical bills and household costs. Catherine suggested freezing them and setting up a trust to protect the funds for their intended use. By the next day, I was in motion. I met with another lawyer, Thomas Rodriguez, who specialized in financial matters. He reviewed the accounts, nodding as I detailed how I'd been the primary contributor. Freezing them is smart, he said. It prevents misuse while keeping the funds available for their needs. I opened new bank accounts under my name, using a P.O. box in nearby Waterloo for privacy. I called my boss again, this time to resign, citing personal reasons. 7 years at the agency ended with a 10-minute conversation and a promise to email my formal letter. The hardest part was deciding what to take. My duplex held the usual stuff, furniture, clothes, books, but little felt like it belonged to the person I wanted to be. I sorted everything into piles: sell, donate, take. The take pile was small: my laptop, a few outfits, a journal I'd kept since college, and a bracelet my high school art teacher gave me. Everything else could go. Claire texted once, asking if I was okay, but I didn't reply. Janet and William didn't reach out, their silence louder than any apology. As I packed, the live stream replayed in my mind: Janet's smile, William's toast, Claire's silence. It wasn't just rejection, it was erasure. But with every box I taped shut, I felt lighter, like I was shedding their expectations. I was done being the daughter they didn't want. I chose Savannah, Georgia, almost on instinct, a historic coastal city far enough from Cedar Falls to feel like another world. I didn't have a plan beyond getting there, but south felt right, like I was chasing warmth after years in the cold. I loaded my Honda Civic with 2 suitcases and hit the road. Interstate 35 to Interstate 40, stretching out like a promise. The drive took 2 days, a blur of gas stations, cheap motels, and playlists to drown out the noise in my head. I paid cash for everything, keeping my old phone on but silenced, tucked in the glove box for emergencies. Janet texted once, a curt, "Where are you?" I didn't reply. Claire sent a vague, "Are you okay?" message. But William's silence spoke loudest. Their lack of effort confirmed I'd made the right call. Savannah was more beautiful than I expected, a city with Spanish moss and cobblestone streets lined with historic homes. I found a rental listing for a converted carriage house in the Victorian district, month to month, furnished, available immediately. It wasn't perfect: creaky floors, a temperamental air conditioner, windows that stuck in the humidity, but it was mine. A space where no one demanded anything of me. I signed the lease as Lane Carter, using my middle name to mark a fresh start. It wasn't a disguise, just a way to distance myself from the Mabel they'd rejected. I set up a freelance graphic design website under Lane Carter, securing small gigs through online platforms: logos, business cards, social media campaigns. Nothing big, but enough to cover rent and groceries. The work felt liberating, each project a reminder I could build something on my own terms. But the drama from Cedar Falls wasn't done with me yet. 3 weeks into my new life in Savannah, the past clawed its way back. My old phone buzzed with a voicemail from Janet. "Mabel, where are you? This isn't how family behaves." Her voice dripped with accusation, as if I'd committed a crime by leaving. William followed with a text, "Your mother's in the hospital. You need to come home." My heart lurched, not from worry, but from the familiar pull of guilt they'd weaponized my whole life. I didn't call back. Instead, I contacted Thomas Rodriguez to check the trust. He confirmed the accounts were intact, covering Janet's utilities and prescriptions, but she tried pulling $8,000 for emergency medical costs without documentation. The request was denied, and I knew this hospital stay was another manipulation. A day later, an email popped up from Dr. Patricia Evans, Janet's doctor in Cedar Falls. "Mabel, I can't share details due to privacy, but your mother's condition is stable, not life-threatening. It's more emotional than physical." Her tone was careful but clear. A panic episode, not a heart attack. Janet was fine, just spinning a crisis to reel me back. I sat on my carriage house porch, staring at my phone, the weight of their manipulation settling in. They weren't worried about me, they wanted control, and I wasn't giving it back. Claire's email came next, subject line, "I'm sorry." She wrote, "Mabel, I didn't realize how bad things were for you. Mom and Dad were out of line, but they're struggling now. Please call. We can fix this." Her words sounded sincere, but they lacked weight. She'd stood silent while they erased me, never once stepping in during years of their favoritism. I read it twice, searching for something to hold on to, but found nothing real enough to change my mind. I didn't reply. The sister I'd hoped for didn't exist, and chasing her approval was just another trap. I started exploring Savannah, finding comfort in its rhythm. One morning, I stopped at a coffee shop called Moonrise Cafe, where I met Carmen Torres, the owner. Carmen, in her early 50s with silver-streaked hair and a warm smile, handed me my coffee and said, "New face, huh? Savannah's good for new beginnings." Her casual kindness caught me off guard, but I just nodded, not ready to share. Days turned into weeks, and Savannah became more than a refuge, it was home. My freelance work as Lane Carter grew, with clients praising my designs, no longer overshadowed by family demands. Carmen invited me to a local book club where I met people who didn't know the old Mabel, the one who'd shrunk to fit her family's mold. I started painting again, something I'd abandoned after Janet called it a waste of time. Each brushstroke felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The guilt still crept in sometimes, whispering that I'd abandoned them. But I'd learned to push back. They'd pushed me out first, and staying gone was my survival. Looking back, I've learned something vital. Loving yourself sometimes means walking away from those who hurt you, even if they're family. Putting your worth first isn't selfish, it's the only way to live authentically. I disappeared not to punish them, but to save myself. And I'd do it again.